What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. Shout out to Legendary because she put me on to this breaking news. Actually, this morning, I'm just getting around doing a video, and I was in shock because I'm like, wait a minute, I'm watching, I'm watching Undisputed at the same time, and they're talking about how the negotiations between Camp Holyfield and Camp Tyson had broken down, and that apparently they're not going to fight each other. Now all of a sudden, Tyson comes out on Instagram Live and says the fight's a done deal and that they're going to fight on May 29th. Oh, shit. Now, if anything, the anticipation and excitement and the success that Tyson and Jones was, and the anticipated excitement and the anticipated success that Tyson-Holyfield's going to garner is, if anything, it's just an indictment on the current state of boxing. I mean, really, like, I know so many people who talk boxing. This is how you know boxing has fallen apart. And everybody can attest to this. I know so many people who were once purely boxing channels that have converted their channels to talking about other shit. Why? Because ain't shit going on in boxing. But just a bunch of politics and a bunch of charlatans, motherfuckers who proclaim to be fucking fighters, but they won't fucking fight each other. Do you know how often I talked about boxing? I'm not a boxing channel, but you know how often I talked about boxing 10 years ago, 8 years ago, 7 years ago, even 6 years ago? A lot. There's nobody fighting each other now. Okay, supposedly Anthony Joshua supposed to fight Tyson Fury. I don't buy it. But both of their histories, one of these motherfuckers gonna change their mind, chicken out, have some excuse, and they're just gonna end up fighting some bum. Okay? Why haven't Joshua fought Wilder yet? Look, even in the '90s, when Tyson and Holyfield and Riddick Bowe and Lennox Lewis were doing their thing, you had George Foreman come back out of retirement in '87, ultimately fighting Holyfield to not a draw, but he fought him admirably in '91. I believe uh, he was supposed to have beaten, who was it? He was supposed to have gotten a title shot like in '93 if he was to beat Tommy Morrison, but Morrison beat Foreman, and then his last chance was pretty much against Michael Moore, and that's when he pulled off that upset and became, at the time, the oldest champion ever at 45. And then Larry Holmes came back and he fought well against certain fighters. I think he beat Ray Mercer, and you saw Buster Douglas come back in the late '90s and have some success. But these fights and these fighters didn't overshadow boxing. The stars still shine through because even then, even though they weren't fighting as much, and even though they kind of were starting then to fight some bums, you know what I'm saying? You can see the influence of money then, where these guys made so much money that they didn't have to always fight big fights. They could make 5, 10, 15 million. In Tyson's case, 25 million, and then coast for a while, and then maybe fight another good big fight a year and a half later or a year later. Whereas in the past, they didn't have such big purses, so they had to fight constantly, you know. And by default, they fought champions more. because you got more money for fighting those guys. So you got to fight. So that's the influence of money in sports. Sometimes that influence, a lot of times, it's a detriment to sports. But anyway, you still saw the fights you wanted to see. You don't see that now. So yeah, that's why you got people saying, look, I'm looking more forward to these old ass motherfuckers fighting each other than these motherfuckers today. Now about Holyfield and Tyson, look man, I used to be a huge Tyson fanboy. When he fight, I'm not gonna lie, I kind of revert to being a fanboy. I don't like his politics, but you know what I'm saying? He comes across to me as like a fucking conservative Republican and shit. I don't, and it's not the conservative part. I'm like, I don't understand how a black person can be a Republican. But I don't know if he considers himself a Republican. Anyway, um, as a fighter, he still is entertaining. Um, Clearly, he's not the force he once was at his age. However, um, there's this thing. I look at both of these fights. Like, if this is a legit fight, which I doubt, but if it was a legit fight, like a sanctioned actual fight, and not some you know exhibition, this is my this is just my personal opinion. I've always felt like Holyfield was juicing when he fought Tyson. And why do I feel like that? I look at how Holyfield looked before he fought Tyson, in particular in that last bow fight when something was seriously wrong with him. And I looked at his physique when he fought Tyson. And this motherfucker had Karl Malone shoulders and fucking Lou Ferrigno biceps. Like, what the fuck? No, 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 no. He talk about he working out. No, motherfucker, you juicing up. You're juicing up. And if you watch the fights, that first fight especially, Holyfield was pushing Tyson around. Remember, Holyfield started off as a cruiserweight. Mike Tyson was 190 pounds as a 13-year-old kid. Pure muscle. Freak of nature. But he's pushing Tyson around and taking Tyson shots like they ain't shit and inflicting punishment on Tyson. That don't even sound right. This is the same dude that couldn't stay up against Riddick Bowe. The second fight, you know, Tyson just fucking went ballistic. I don't know, maybe it was the fact that he thought that the same shit was gonna happen with Holyfield biting him, and Holyfield headbutting him and shit. I don't know why Tyson did that shit. But I will say this: I thought Tyson was winning the fight before he went fucking nuts. Now, whether he was gonna win the fight after work, in the end, I don't know. I'll say this though: Holyfield did not age well through the end of his career. He's shown apparent signs of brain damage. Um, he looked done toward the end of his career. I know he's a warrior, but he looked done. When I've seen his recent workouts, he looks slow. Tyson, on the other hand, even though Tyson looked done toward the end of his career, I've always thought it was more because he really didn't give a fuck anymore. Like he didn't really care. I didn't think it was really that much a loss of ability. I think he just really didn't give a fuck, and he was in a fucked up place. Drug addict, coke addict. And when you look at Tyson now, he looks better physically at age 54 than he did when he was 39. So I don't know. I mean, I would think I would give the edge to Tyson, But when you look at the fight history, you kind of give the psychological edge to Holyfield. So if I was going to make a prediction, I would say it should be possibly an even fight if it's an up and up fight. Um, I don't know. We'll have to see on what's going on with this fight. I'm assuming it's an exhibition. You know what I'm saying? I'm assuming it's an exhibition. But if it's an actual fight, damn. You know. Um, I know some people worry about injury and the fact that they're this age. I'm just going to assume that because they're older, they're not going to fight 12 rounds or 10 rounds or you know I don't even know if it's going to be 8 rounds if it's an actual real fight. I don't know if they're going to make an exception to that because if it's sanctioned, it has to be 12. I don't know. I don't know all that shit. You know what I'm saying? I don't really follow boxing like that no more. But if it's an actual real fight, shit, I mean, it is what it is. You know what I'm saying? They're, they're fighters. They know the risk involved in fighting. They accept that shit. Is there one guy I'm rooting for? Fuck yeah, it'd be Tyson. I ain't gonna lie. Now I've always seen lean on steroids, but that's non-combat sports. I have a totally different stance on steroids when it comes to MMA, boxing. That's something different because in combat you can hurt people. That's the hurt game. And when you purposely take something or use a substance to give yourself an advantage over another fighter to the point where you know you could kill that motherfucker and you don't give a fuck, you can't be that much of a man of God. You know what I'm saying? So even though Tyson is a fucking, I hate even say that shit about him, man. I used to be a big fan of his, but even though Tyson be cooning and shit, man, you know, I breaks my heart sometimes, man. But even though I know Tyson on that shit sometimes, man, I still got to root for him as a fighter over Holyfield. But tell me what you guys think.